here today doing our Influencers series, and we're with Mr. Frederick Herot. He is the Vice President of Marketing for Realtor.com. He also is lives in Southern California, so he has a wealth of knowledge in real estate. What I've come to know from Frederick, he has a lot to offer. So tell us, if you can, just a little bit about your background and how long you've been in real estate. Who is Frederick?
So I have respect for people who list and sell real estate because I've done the same. So I still actually to this date have a Connecticut real estate broker's license. That's awesome. I've maintained it all these years. I think people going into it, they have expectations. It looks like fairly straightforward business, and they do the math on the calculations on what the commissions are, and they say, oh, this is a no-brainer, let me go into here. And then all of a sudden, things are more complex once they get in there. It's complex as an agent because not everything just goes your way, and it's an emotional roller coaster. And it's complex as a broker because not everything works in a logical path, and you've got multiple personalities. But I came into it through the real estate side, and I have respect for that real estate side.
When you were with Weichert, what was kind of your biggest learning lessons along the way? What did you see that they did well, and what, it's still applicable today, because that's some of the stuff I've learned from you.
Well, not to give away Jim Weichert's secrets, but I will say this about working with him is that he had a very good rudder to steer towards the things that were actually productive and were going to lead towards better relationships. He was very much, you'd hear him say over and over again, people buy people before they buy services or goods. And he stuck to that. And despite all the distractions that come to the industry, he adopted the technology that furthered that aim, but he never lost that core. And it's something that I noticed with you and some of the other great brokers and agents that are out there, is that they take advantage of all of the apparatus around the real estate industry, but they don't forget the center part.
Who are your mentors, or who have you learned from through the years or even now?
So everybody does learn from their mentors more than, I had audio that I would listen to in my car when I got into real estate, but there was this guy who waxed on and on the phone next to me when I was an agent. And I would listen to him, and I'd listen to what he was saying, and then I would ask him questions, and I annoyed the heck out of him. This guy named Frank Pirro, I don't even know if he's still out there. But
he's going to probably hit you up now. I can already tell you.
But anybody who is willing to give back a little bit, because people who have success, I find this in the industry, it's common now with the people I'm working with now, that for some reason they want to give back and pass it on to somebody else. So it started as an agent, then I moved into Ravis's environment. Bill Ravis, tremendous guy, not afraid to take chances. He's one of those people who will bet the ranch and lose it all and then make it all back again and grow from it. So he was one of the first to actually take real estate and take technology and merge it together and understand that that's where it was going before anyone else. So I'd definitely say William Ravis. And then the other side of the spectrum, when you look at Jim Weichert, his ability to, as I said, discern between the distraction and the apparatus around what the relationship is in real estate and get to the core of why somebody buys from somebody else and how that relationship needs to build, I think that was instructive.
Where do you, kind of on that same note, then where do you see real estate going? Like what's next?
So here's where I see it rolling. I think when technology came to real estate, there was a wave of fear that the real estate was going to be disrupted. And I think Realtor.com was actually born in the vortex of that confusion, that we were going to be disintermediated by the newspapers. So let's quickly build a safe place in this internet environment or this online environment for realtors. But I think what happened is that the reaction by the industry was that the industry felt they had to be more like the technology people that they were talking to, and they almost surrendered to it. And what they didn't realize is that the key to the whole thing was what the knowledge and the way that they approach things in their mind. And So I think what's happening now, the pivot is, instead of real estate people thinking that they have to embrace technology to get forward, they're realizing they have to force technology to let what they want to do come forward. That's the pivot. So you're going to see people eschewing the automatic response. They're not going to be so interested in the word set it and forget it. They're interested in ways that they can maximize their time to be real with real people and let this apparatus kind of work in the background.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot echo that more. I think you've heard me kind of talk too. There's a lot of technology, but so many people want to use that technology versus meeting with people, right? And I kind of wonder, do you see real estate kind of getting back to, now that everybody's kind of been blinded by the technology, do you see it getting back to more, face-to-face, or maybe it's there now?
Yeah, I think the technology has removed some of the time that was needed for mechanically prospecting and for mechanically, we've used this stuff called Rezio that sort of takes care of your transactions. So if that stuff is off your plate, and then you're given this time where you can actually spend using your brain to create those relationships and build your influence, and that may be not necessarily from you to your customer, but it may be helping your agents and empowering them so that they're out doing things. That's more a natural way for this to progress.
Have you seen, and you get to speak to brokers throughout the United States, have you seen any innovative technologies, anything that's kind of caught your eye of like, yeah, I think that'll work? Or on the flip side, people are doing things that they'll probably not be doing anymore?
Well, you can use fishing analogies because the market swings, and for a while nobody wanted to touch a listing. Everybody was going after buyers because the listings would just sit there forever. And then it turns, and all of a sudden listings are everything. So that these fluctuations are going to go on. I would say the two things are that do your casting where the action is. So look, everybody was on Realtor.com in terms of where the buyers are. We realize also they're on other sites, so Realtor.com plays well with other things. You may find that it gets down to your relationship. So if your relationships are built on LinkedIn and Facebook, et cetera, you should be putting your feelers out there to bring people to you. But I think what's going to help the most is to take the 15,000 people in your community and try to figure out which are the 2,000 that are going to move this year. That's the number one thing. Mm-hmm. And then the second thing is taking a look at the 500 people in your database and figuring out the 50 of them that are going to move next year. You can do those two things, then the rest of it is just down to how you approach them and how you build your relationship. So the predictive analytics and then the relationship building.
Yeah, and from this conference, I've seen some stuff coming up with that, with Realtor.com. Is that correct? Like some predictive stuff kind of moving in that direction?
We keep refining it. So you'll see like in Top Producer now, there's connections to what's going on in Facebook and what's going on in LinkedIn. You'll see that when you get a lead from Realtor.com, they'll put some of those social tools in there. And you'll also see some of the behaviors of what other properties they've looked at. That stuff is gold. It's not everything, but if you have 15,000 people to talk to in your community, you want to talk to the ones that are showing you some buying signs.
There's a company in Austin called offers.com that are kind of doing that same thing. So they talked about it in the conference about the predictive analytics and people that are potentially going to list their house. Have you heard? Is there a lot of stuff coming down the road with Realtor with that, or not really?
Well, we look at the whole community. So you see that for a long time, Realtor.com was the most dominant on the buying side of the business. But as we've worked closer with the real estate community, we have more sold data. And so we are probably the only company that issues sold alerts to let people in the neighborhood know that a property is sold. When you do that and you send a sold alert out into the community, you'd be surprised how effective that is on the listing side of the business and getting people to raise their hands. I was in one of these companies when everything was done with cardboard postcards. And this is how sophisticated we were at this time. So I had a pile this tall of just listed property cards. and a pile this tall of just sold cards. And each one had on the back a tear-off CMA. I would like to know what my home is worth, or you'll get a home evaluation. So this was the depth of my sophistication. I took a purple marker and I struck it down all of the ones that were just listed. And then I put a red marker and put it down all the ones that said just sold, sent equal amounts out, like probably 3,000 or 4,000 cards into the community. Twice as many came back that were the ones that said just sold, meaning that the community is interested to know that something just came on the market, but they're highly interested to know that something actually sold.
Well, and you, one of the things you gave me was kind of the process of an open house and what you do when you're listing. Do you remember that conversation about letting people know what the property sold for, even going door to door?
Yeah, well, I think that is one of the things I learned from one of my mentors is that, look, it's a really local business. There were agents at one time who really just focused on their own immediate neighborhood first, and then everything else was secondary. So getting the people involved, you've heard people complain at open houses that, oh, these are just the neighbors who are curious, right? Well, where does all of this start when you're thinking about selling your property? It's curiosity. Gee, could I live in a better house? Should I be contemplating a move? And so I think welcoming people in to the looky-loos are your most valuable, and that's where you start these relationships. It's just that you've got to have some kind of system. If you started a conversation that may take, our economist says it's like 36 months out before they're actually going to move. Google said that as well. What do you do in those 36 months besides haranguing somebody every day? That's the challenge.
So when you look at, I'll say Realtor.com or even a brokerage, how do you define success? How do you know that what you guys are doing is working?
So this is, I think, one of those cases where technology had to adapt to the reality. And so I say this all the time. We were trying to engage, so we market things to agents, we market things to brokers. And so you'll hear me constantly say, is somebody going to wake up in the morning and say, honey, I got to do something about my page views today? Or they're not, right? They're going to say, I need to get some more closings. I need to get some more listings. I need to get some more buyers. Those really tangible things, if you keep focused on that endpoint, all of a sudden everything else starts to make more sense. So if what you're doing does not somehow lead you into a stronger relationship with the potential buyer or seller and ultimately lead you to a closing, then it doesn't make a great deal of sense to me. I've got to be able to draw that line. And so we remove a lot of clutter just from that.
You really have. Well, I want to thank you for your time. You're awesome. I appreciate it. And any questions you want to ask me? Just kidding. We're good. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.